Next, we have a bit of a battle coming up. We have quite a few questions that were about Flutter versus React Native. So we're going to tackle those questions next.
So I was basically, to answer this question, I thought that building the same kind of application in both React Native and Flutter would be a good way to sort of compare the two technologies that we have. And this is completely my point of view, but I found Flutter, like I have already said, that it's comparatively faster to write and develop views compared to React Native. But of course, like React Native offers like more like extensive and detailed, like you can do like more creative stuff with React Native. There's something that I also noticed was that for example, like the floating action button, that's like a very key widget in Flutter and in like a lot of mobile applications. React Native doesn't have it, so you have to like either you download like an external library that provides you the action button, or you create your own button. Of course, it gives you slightly more advantage in building like customized buttons, but I think you can also do that easily in Flutter. So it's just that there's a lot of things that come already bundled with Flutter, and there are a lot of things that you have to get from the outside or depend on in React Native. So I don't know. I have like a slightly biased opinion when it comes to like choosing either of them. So, but yeah. But my experience was that I enjoyed doing the same thing in Flutter more than in React Native. And if we move to the next slide, there's like some more comparison between the two, and of course, like every technology has like a pro and a con. So, like for example, React Native uses like JavaScript, and there's a gradual learning curve. And if you already know React, which is in itself quite a technology, I mean, like React Native becomes like much easier, while Dart is like it's a different. Some people say that it gets like some stuff from like JavaScript as well, but I feel like if you're doing JavaScript for like 2 or 3 years and you've already been doing like JavaScript, I think Dart offers like a good sweet escape from the whole JavaScript ecosystem, and then you can do slightly something different, and just to develop your skills in a different technology as well. Of course, React Native has like a bigger community of developers, and there's like extensive support available online, which really helps. But Dart, I mean, if you're not doing like something really complex, and if even if you just rely on the official documentation, you can like get through a lot of stuff. It's really readable, and like you understand it pretty easily. Well, one benefit with React is that it's the same JavaScript ecosystem. So of course, like it's easier for people who are already web developers to get into mobile development and start developing apps. Like Laurie already also covered, one thing about Flutter is that you can also like integrate it to native applications, and it's not that complicated. So I think that's like kind of a good point for Flutter as well. There's one thing that was in comparison on multiple places, that React Native is something that you would use mostly if there's a very highly complex application that you're building, while Dart was put out there as a more suitable fix for developers like MVPs and like proof of concept applications.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, of course, like it's not that mature if you compare it to React Native, but I think like there's still a lot of things that you can do with Flutter. So, yeah. And then some of the cons for React Native that I found was that, of course, like I already mentioned about the floating action button and some other things that you have to like rely on external libraries unless you want to do it yourself, which of course adds to the development time as well. So a normal mobile application project in React Native would be, I believe, a bit longer than in Flutter. So that's one thing. And there is, of course, like, I think Boss mentioned this point of steep learning curve for animations in React Native. Do you want to share something on this?
Yeah. So in Flutter, it's the APIs are very intuitive compared to React Native, and React Native usually use native. You can use a native API, but there's a sort of like problem with the animated API because it can suffer from a performance issue if you overuse it extensively. And so there's a workaround that by using React Native reanimated package where it uploads all the animations to the native side. But the API is really hard to master, and you need to learn a lot of stuff to understand that. You have to understand the bridge, how the bridge works, how the React Native communicate to the native side. So there's a lot of things you need to learn before you can master this animation. Whereas Flutter, the API are very intuitive.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Like you can get really smooth animated experience like from the get-go. So with even the basic setup and the built-in widgets. So I agree that in Flutter that's much more.
There's a lot of things that already comes like kind of like installed and ready to use with Flutter, and then I think that really adds to the experience.
Yeah. Like in all, I think in Flutter, like getting a finished, like polished looking UI is faster and easier using the widgets. Better for building MVPs, it says right there.
Yeah, I also want to add that there are more toolings in Flutter than in React Native. Like the dev tools in Flutter, it's better than in React Native in general.
Yeah, that's mentioned in a question on the chat, like what kind of testing tools, and I like to say that a lot of the stuff that's built in, there's the test package for unit test and the Flutter test for widget tests, and then the Flutter driver for basically doing what like WebDriver does. So all of that works pretty nicely out of the box.
Yeah,
I haven't had any need for finding any external packages for that.
Yeah, when you create the example application, it will come with a set of example tests that are on also on the widget level. So it's really handy, really quick way to get up. So,
yeah.
So do we agree that Flutter is better than React Native?
It's controversial.
yeah, you can't say that.
If your boss buys it, then yeah.
Okay, both have their pros and cons.
Exactly.